Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Dukova, and today we're going to talk about the populism and crisis of the democracy. So, we have a book that titles How Democracies Died and How Democracy Ends, and it actually expresses the widely held belief that liberal representative democracy faces acute danger. The most recent report by the NGO Freedom House is titled Democracy is Retreat. Modi's India or Erdogan's Turkey or Brazil's president, Putin's Russia, and yes, the United States under Trump, the rise of strong men with a poorly developed propensity to protect the institutional integrity of democracy has led to alarming diagnoses. This trend is along to the dramatic rise of populist political parties in Europe in the past 20 years. Movimento Podemos and Syriza in the south, and Sweden Democrats in the Finns parties in the north, and Fidesz and PiS in the east are just a few examples of Europe's new populist power centers. And now the pandemic is only exhibited such social tensions. Some sought to allay their fears by pointing out that crisis declarations have always completed democracy. So today's conditions are nothing under the democratic sun and presents so grounds for concern. When Hart Lasky delivered his Whale lectures in 1931, titled Democracy in Crisis, his premonitions proved tragically on the mark. But this recalls a certain phenomenon common among economists. When someone parliamentary screams crisis, it shouldn't be considered an accurate prognosis of the rare occasional that a crisis actually developed. Moreover, Lasky justified the pessimism tough analysis of two particular countries of central importance to the survival of democracy in the 20th century, like the United States and the United Kingdom. But our time is distinctly different than Lasky's, at least in one respect. Only a few decades have passed since it became controversial wisdom that political and economic liberation read. Democracy and capitalism have become the only legitimated form of political rule. It was but a short time ago that France's diagnosis of the end of the history rang more loudly than all of today's warnings of the end of democracy. This leads us to the paradox of our current situation with French historian Pierre Rosanvallon, summarized as follows. The democratic ideal now reigns unchallenged, but regimes claiming to be democratic come for it for righteous criticism almost everywhere. We are thus controlled with the simulation non-crisis and crisis democracy. This is something new. Today, democracy is being challenged in the name of democracy. The issues are direct versus representative democracy, illiberal versus liberal democracy. Some even present the conflict as the people versus democracy. The title of a book by political theorist Yasha Monk, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson managed to frame his most recent election as the people against the politicians. Donald Trump's reaction to the introduction of the impeachment proceeding against him was a tweet. There is not after me, they are after me. He would go on repeatedly characterize his impeachment as an attack of democracy. Everyone across the political spectrum invokes the good name of democracy, those who defend the status quo as well as those who attack it. Thus, all political opponents can be constructed as enemies of democracy. Each party sees its own conceptions of what democracy actually is, while for some it represents the unshaken sovereignty of the people. Others idealize a maximum level of legal restraint on liberalist tendencies. Needless to say, there is no justification for accepting the new populist interpretation of themselves as the fighters for real and true democracy and against the corrupt cartel of entities attempting to sell us their own definition of real and true democracy. Yet, nor should we dismiss it out of hand as poor propaganda, for it serves to illustrate at least two important points. First, as a Dutch political theorist, Cosmod wrote, democracy has now become hegemonic in the sense of popular sovereignty, the principle of majority rule, while this is not the case of a liberal democracy that sets the comprehensive protection of minorities, its separation of powers, as well as the increasing delegations of decision-making power to non-majority and or supranational entities. And the second, an understanding of the conflict solely as a struggle between Democrats and anti-Democrats falls short of the mark. It is highly possible to argue that an illiberal democracy in the Orban mold is not a democracy at all. But the argument that liberalism has become under-democratic in many of its current manifestations is actually valid. These points underscore the fact that the success of populism is best understood in the context of the broad disappointment with the composition, condition, and functionality of our representative democracy. In the words of the British political scientist David Runisman, democracy is not working well. It is where there will be no populist backlash. This means that populists are not the real problem of democracy. They merely indicate that a problem exists, yet we cannot effectively defend representative democracy in the face of its weaknesses, seeing the conflict not a struggle between evil anti-democracies and good democrats, but rather between the democratic and non-democratic countries. So that's all for today. Have a good day and bye.